In this video, I'm going to give you a overview of two seemingly similar sites. They look similar on paper, but in practical terms, they couldn't be more different if they tried, and they fill a very different niche. On the left is the SwampFox Trihawk 3x30. On the right is a Burris RT-3 3x20. If you note the picture and the spec table in front of you, one of the things that really jumps out is how much larger the Trihawk is. And one of the negatives of that size, obviously, well, more weight than the size itself. Another important thing is the field of view. Neither manufacturer lists the field of view. I knew the SwampFox was supposed to be around 10 degrees, so I crudely measured it and got 9.6. And I measured the Burris as well, and it looks to be about 25% narrower field of view at the same magnification, and a smaller exit pupil, 9.5 millimeter or thereabouts for the Trihawk, and 6.6 millimeter for the Burris RT-3. The tiny Crimson Trace pistol red dot optic is mostly there for size comparison, so you kind of get an idea of how big these two scopes really are. Because of this size difference, they are not really that comparable in many ways, because you'd use them in a different situation, right? The image circle of the SwampFox is huge, visible, very wide apparent field of view, almost 30 degrees, about 29 degrees. But there is weight. It's not hugely heavy, but it's about a pound. Burris RT-3, and there are a couple other similar prismatic scopes out there, is pretty much the lightest way you can get a little bit of magnification onto your rifle. This thing is absolutely tiny and weighs less than 10 ounces with the mount and everything, less than 9. It's listed as 8.8, which is what's in the table. I measured mine at 8.5 ounces, which is really, really tremendous. However, if you are looking for speed, I am clearly faster with the Trihawk, simply because of how much larger the apparent field of view is and how different the reticle is arranged. The whole business of why the Trihawk is that much larger really comes down to the size of the eyepiece and the size of the prisms. Here we see the eyepieces. Trihawk is on the left, and the RT-3 is on the right. And given the similar eye relief, you can imagine how much larger the image circle on a Trihawk has to be. And after the pictures, I have two clips looking through both scopes. First Trihawk, then RT-3, and you'll see what they look like. The objective lens is similar, notably larger on the Trihawk, 13 millimeters versus 20 millimeters for the Burris RT-3. The reticles, sort of an interesting thing, and it's a good example of you can't easily tell what's happening when you just look on the website. These pictures are copied from the Burris website. Note that the horseshoe is 3 milliradians approximately. The SwampFox reticle, also pictures taken from the website. If you went just by the pictures, you'd think this is a smaller appearing reticle. When you see the videos at the moment, you'll see the difference. The horseshoe in a Trihawk is about 40 MOA, which is a bit over 11 milliradian. Let's take a look at the videos and you will see exactly what I mean in terms of the side picture and the reticle size. Do keep in mind that there are some lighting variations there, that just because the lighting outside kept on changing. In terms of optical quality, overall both of these scopes are quite good. I can't complain, but they look very different because of the differences in the apparent field of view and differences in the apparent reticle size. Alright folks, the purpose of today's exercise is to look at a couple of very small prismatic scopes. Well, one of them is very small, one of them is not so small. And the idea is that I want to show you how differently the reticle looks and how differently the side picture looks the field of view, size of the viewing window and stuff like that, using exact same camera settings. Right now we're looking through SwampFox Trihawk with the MOA reticle. It's a fairly nice and bold reticle. I am looking at a target that's not very far away from me. It's about, what, 15, 18 yards, something like that. And generally it's my air gun target box. Right now I've got a Crimson Trace sticker in the middle of it. It's a little bit too close, I think, for the Trihawk to achieve perfect focus with, but you can see well enough. It's generally kind of a rainy, it was snowing earlier day in Albuquerque, so the sun peaks out, picture gets brighter, then the sun goes away, picture gets darker, but all of the camera settings in this case are locked. The reticle illumination is right now off. I'm going to turn it on so you can see how it looks like during the daylight. Okay. And there we go. So this one is green illuminated, so you can see the reticle, but also, you know, with the reticle off again. With the reticle off again, it's even as is, it's big and nicely visible. I'm gonna turn it on again and scan around a little bit to see. There's not that much to see. It's an overcast day and I don't really have a view of the mountain anymore since I moved, but I'll just show you, you know, some vegetation, something closer, something further, and at least you'll be able to get some idea of the depth of field. I've got a neighbor's chimney over there. Trees are closer than halfway from it, and depth of field is actually very respectable. So I'm going to point it back at my airgun target. And then I will turn off the illumination again and swap out the sides so you can see how it all works. Illumination is off. Let's look up, look down, and let's swap out the sights. So the second scope that we're looking at is the Burris RT-3, which is a much smaller prismatic, although with the same magnification. And the very first real consequence of that you can see is that the side picture is much smaller. It's a much smaller eyepiece, it's a much smaller prism, and it's an overall much smaller sight. I think it's about half of the weight of the SwampFox Trihawk. The edges look a little bit different. It is mostly an artifact of how the camera is set up. I can show you, you know, just as an exercise, the way my fixture allows me to move things in and out, right? I can make it look like all sorts of fun stuff. So I basically just stop somewhere where I think I have a reasonable side picture and leave it alone. Okay. In practice, both of these provide nice view with very thin black ring around the image, but the size of the image is vastly different. Another thing that is substantially different is the size of the reticle. The Burris reticle is considerably smaller and considerably harder to see, or to at least pick out quickly. It's not hard to see. It's harder to pick out quickly when it is not illuminated. Illumination is, this one has red illumination, and it is fairly bright and fairly easy to see. Another interesting artifact of this that you will see is that because this scope, because the Burris is much shorter, it also has a probably greater depth of field. So targets closer will look a little bit sharper, but I don't think it is a huge difference. I'm gonna look up a little bit so you get an idea of how it is, you know, against the bright sky. And that same chimney, that is probably 40-50 yards away. The trees between us and stuff like that. Back to the target. And I am going to turn the illumination off.
Okay, and we'll scan one more time just so that you could, that's all right, just so that you could see what it looks like in terms of the non-illuminated side picture. Okay, so I hope that gives you a reasonable demonstration of the difference between the two. So the sun kind of went away now, so the picture got darker. The scope is not really darker, it's just that the picture has changed. For example, let's do this. That's going to be more equivalent to what it's supposed to be, just that, you know, I don't control where the sun moves with respect to the clouds.